Welcome to Ask Miss Mears, where we answer your most burning questions and solve your most nagging problems. I won't always know the answer, but I'll know someone who will. The American Psychological Association defines resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors, all of which are very present in these very trying times. How indeed do we keep going despite the most dire circumstances we have ever faced? Here to help us out, not just get through these times, but hopefully to learn how to be strong and tough so we can bounce back from any future setbacks, is Gisa Paredes, a registered and licensed psychologist, founder of Healing Minds Philippines, and the Chief Operating Officer of WellAtSea, a company that safeguards the mental and physical well-being of over 8,000 seafarers all over the world. Hello, Gisa.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good. It's been a busy day in the maritime lately.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes most of us don't know what to do or think anymore when we see on our Facebook feeds memes like Pilipinas, kaya pa ba? I'm sure you're also very, very fully booked. And do you handle all the 8,000 maritime workers, or do you have a
Yes.
staff?
I have a staff. Yes. So we have a very small staff actually, and we're handling 5 different companies at the moment. And just all the seafarers that are out there that are stranded at the moment and still have to work during these trying times.
I mean, we're all experiencing cabin fever, and if there's anyone truly experiencing cabin fever, it must be them. Would you like to tell us about your experience and, in general, what psychologists such as yourself are dealing with in terms of people's mental health issues?
Right. So generally, what I do for Well at Sea particularly is we've put together a wellness program to be able to take care of the mental health of a seafarer. The reality of what they're facing right now is during this pandemic, a lot of them are unable to come home. For those of you out there that may be coming from seafaring families, you know what I'm talking about. For those who don't, then understand this: when the world locked down, even the ports closed, so it became very hard for the seafarers to go home to the people that they love. And it became very hard also for those that, it was ready, it was their time to go to work, and they couldn't seem to leave the country. So this is a very stressful time for them. And while some of them have been on board now for 12 months, some almost 15 months, that is way too long for any seafarer. And it can be very difficult mentally, mostly mentally for them, and emotionally, of course.
Right. And so, what have you learned from that experience? That, of course, they're in a more grave situation because it seems like they're not even going anywhere, right? They're mostly in limbo. And
That's right.
it's kind of how we all feel right now. We're sort of in limbo because the future is uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. And so, what is something that about resilience that is very applicable, maybe on like a less intense scale for all of us undergoing the pandemic?
Well, I think what I learned just from seeing like the seafarers out there, particularly the Filipino, is how resilient we really are. It
Right.
really comes with our culture because we, no matter what happens, may tiyaga eh. And I'm sure we can see that now, not just, for people abroad, but even just the workers here. We can see how much they're like putting into what they're doing. And that just shows you the spirit of the Filipino, that, when things go crazy around us and where our government is unable to really support, we end up supporting each other. And that's what's I guess that's what makes us us. That's what makes us so
So,
unique.
is resilience directly translatable to tiyaga, or is tiyaga perseverance? Or maybe it's all
Maybe
interrelated.
I think it's all interrelated. I would think that tiyaga, perseverance, hard work comes into what makes a person resilient. So
Right.
one of the first things actually that I thought of when we were like thinking about this talk was, what makes a person resilient actually starts with a lot of self-management and
Oh, I see.
self-awareness.
Right.
We can't just say na, yeah, okay lang yan. There has to be some like level of awareness of what's going on also with the self. Did that make
Right.
sense?
Right. Right. Of course. Well, this kind of resilience of the Filipino is also kind of taken advantage of, right? Kasi sa sobrang tiyaga natin minsan, the people who are supposed to be solving many of the country's problems, sometimes, di ba, we take, and
That's true.
sometimes detrimental the results, di ba?
Yeah. Parang we
And
just take it in and then bahala na.
yeah, so asset pala yun, pero minsan disadvantage din. So why how much further do we need to develop our resilience, or what do you see is unique about the Filipino experience? Like, are we
Hmm.
like, I know we're always optimistic. Sometimes they call it toxic positivity, right? We're always banking on, hindi, okay lang yan, hindi, okay lang yan. But sometimes, are there other aspects that we also need to take into consideration? Like, are we being
Definitely.
proactive? Are we, trying to adapt a problem-solving mindset, or just bahala na si Batman?
Yeah. Well, actually, that's the thing, no? When it comes to like resiliency in the Filipino, the reason why we're also putting up with all these things is because things don't tend to work in our culture.
Right.
Um, the word right now is slipping my tongue, but let's say in a Western environment, let's say in Europe where the train is working, the bus comes on time, or let's say
Right.
even in Hong
Right.
Kong where like the
Right.
MTR comes on time and all of that, people can rely on that system. That
Right.
at 5:05 and 5:10 and 5:15, at that very minute, everything is going to fall into place.
Right.
But also, people that come from those cultures that are used to this kind of setting, when things go bad, meaning when things are unpredictable, it becomes harder for them to cope. But because the Filipino is used to a place where, well, we don't know if it's coming at 5, 5:05, 5:10,
Right.
5:15, we are not sure.
Right.
Then we kind of just learned how to suck it up and to kind of find ways to deal with the situations that we're faced with. So yes, that is one. But another thing is, you said there is also toxic positivity in this culture. That we tend to say, bahala na, or think positive na lang. But I think that when it comes to resilience, also we need to be clear about the things that we will accept and we will not accept. I think
Right.
that resilience also comes with boundaries.
Right.
Sustainable resilience actually
Right.
comes from establishing clear boundaries.
Right. So the key is sustainable resilience, and not
Sustainable.
just limitless resilience, which will inevitably cause burnout, right? Like, we are so used to the worst case scenario that I don't know what it does to our psyche, right? We become hoarders. We become, we kind of become very selfish and not look out for the community because you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, you thought you had health insurance, turns out it's all gone.
Yeah. And how
So,
scary.
yeah. So, I don't know, maybe there will be studies done about what this does to the Pinoy psyche. But in the meantime, let's dive in right into the 5 tools that uh, Gisa has formulated for us to use in order to strengthen our resilience. So the first step is
Is it my turn? Okay.
Self-management. Self-management and other management. Okay, please elaborate.
Okay. Yeah, so self management leads to other management. What I mean by that is, well, basically, when we talk about resiliency, we're also talking about our well being. So, for example, Mirza, what does wellness mean to you?
Oh, sorry.
If I were to ask you,
Well,
what does it mean to you?
it means that I'm healthy, I'm mentally okay, physically okay. I don't uh, feel any kind of illness or discomfort.
Right. So, see, typically when we talk about being well, we often see it as a neutral point, meaning that for as long as we don't feel anything, then we must be well. But resiliency is actually built when we understand that wellness is a process. That it's not just it's not always, well, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm positive, all of that. But resiliency is knowing that there is a whole spectrum of it, that there is the bad and there is the not so bad. Okay, that there are the pleasant moments and the not so pleasant moments, and that resiliency is a process of learning, constant learning and growth. And what matters is where we're facing, meaning when we're in a not so pleasant situation, when things are bad and we feel so disabled and trapped, that we're facing in the right direction, that we're facing towards a positive mindset, a growth mindset, so to speak. Okay. So wellness, you can see, is a spectrum really, and it tells us how much we're very much capable. Sorry, this tells us that we are very much capable of getting sick, that problems will arise, but our attitude towards this is what helps shape our well being. And we can only grow towards a resilient attitude when we take the first step towards self awareness and self management. So, how do we do that? We need to be able to take a look at our total behavior. So, total behavior is a term that is coined by choice theory reality therapy. And basically, all it's asking is, are our thoughts, actions, feelings, and physical sensations all working in congruence? So, in a world of information overload, there is such a thing as topic fatigue. So, you said earlier, there's so much coming to us in
Yes.
the news, all these things. It's information overload, especially now that we're all home. There's nothing else for us to do. We're on social media. There is also topic fatigue, meaning we've become numb and quite passive towards the
Right,
problems that are out there.
right. So there is
Um,
a term for it, topic fatigue.
Topic fatigue, I've been seeing it around actually also in like the industries.
Right,
Um, but yeah, so the lens of reality therapy that I'm trying to share here basically kind of grounds us to ask ourselves if our total self, the
right,
whole self, if all of those elements are in agreement with each other.
right,
Because if they are in agreement with each other, it helps us kind of build on the tools that we need to be able to manage ourselves, to be
right,
able to manage ourselves and to be able to manage other people. So we can then ask ourselves questions like, how do I feel about this? So taking time to pause, taking time to manage and become aware of what's happening. How do I feel about this? Um, what were my thoughts when I first heard this? What am I thinking now? And what did I do when I first learned this information? What does it make me want to do now, after the fact that I've processed it? And when I hear things like this, my body feels. So these are just some points of reflection that maybe we can take. And that, I guess, that would be the first step towards resilience, becoming first aware of where we are.
right. Sometimes my way of coping is just denial. So, like, sometimes I'll filter all the news and
Mm-hmm.
then just not deal with it. Somehow my world becomes cocoon because I'm like denying reality. What can you say
Right.
about that? I'm sure many of us are doing the same thing, and we're just like baking bread or growing plants and just being oblivious to what's going on out there.
Actually, that's okay too. In fact, some of the things that I wrote down when I was preparing for this was the fact that, being here now or being present also means that, it takes having that tool or that skill of shifting what we see, what we hear, what we taste, and what we smell. Meaning, you don't like what you see in the news, shift. You really need to be able to move your mind to do something else. And these are tools, these are skills that you can develop. And when you get
Right.
really good at it, I'm not sure if it's really denial or if it's just being able to shift yourself in a way
Right.
that helps you survive.
Would you call it compartmentalizing the way men are supposed to be able to compartmentalize and women are supposed to be better at multitasking? Is it similar to
It
that?
it could be, but I think it's more of when these things happen, meaning when something unpleasant is happening to us and we don't like that sensation, people tend to say, "Oh, I just distracted myself with something."
Right, right.
But maybe another way of phrasing that is that you can say you become present to something else. You
Okay.
become mindful to something else, right?
Okay.
Because then you become engrossed in the task of, let's say, cleaning or cooking or something. Yeah.
Right. What are other more concrete tips of self-management vis-a-vis other management?
So I guess
Like,
that kind of brings me to another point. Yeah, which was, as I mentioned, that sustainable resiliency really comes from establishing clear boundaries.
okay,
So
that's
when we're,
number two.
yeah, so when we are, um, what do you call this? If we are to manage the self, then we need to also be able to set clear boundaries. Now, this is coming from the school of individual psychology. Okay, so this guy named Alfred Adler, he's the founder of individual psychology, actually teaches one very useful tool, which I find can help us grow in self management and yet be available to other people. And his tool is so simple, yet life changing. And I can say it's changed my life. Um,
Wow.
yeah, Adlerian psychology encourages us to ask one simple question: is this task mine?
Is this task what?
Is this task mine? And I
Mine.
don't mean, yeah, is it mine? And I don't mean in the work setting, meaning, hindi ba niya kaya gawin? No, that's not what I mean. This means that each of us have tasks that we need to fulfill in our own lives, meaning we are here for a purpose, right? And we tend to blur the lines of tasks and goals when we, one, give someone else advice that they don't need or tell them
Oh,
how
okay.
to live their lives, right?
Yeah.
When we get frustrated that people are making choices beyond our control. Um, but basically, these tasks are not ours. If we really think about it, if someone is making choices that we don't like, well, is it really our task? Is this task mine? Is it my life? No. So one way to also kind of help us manage ourselves is asking, is this task mine? Is
Right.
this person's life choices that I don't like, is it really mine to tackle? Maybe not. Okay.
Right.
Is it my task to, even in rearing children, it's a good way to ask yourself, am I getting in the way too much? Is it my task to have to
Right.
fix this child's problem? Maybe not. And yeah, so you can read more about it. The Adlerian Psychology. The book is called The Courage to Be Disliked.
The courage should be disliked. I like
Yes,
that. I
yes,
have a hard time with that. So in short, don't be pakialamera because it's stressful.
yeah, yeah. Know what is yours. Know what is yours to handle and what is for others to handle. And
Right.
that's where other management comes in as well. The fact that
Right.
you kind of need to let people discover things on their own. You have
Right.
to let them go through the experience and
Right.
you have to go through that experience. So I think that
Right.
um, in this pandemic, it has become so easy for us to get sucked into groupthink, right?
Right.
Reposting without checking sources or facts, which can easily confuse and produce feelings of frustration,
Right.
worry, anger, which have not been productive for a lot of people. So we need to really ask ourselves, is this my task? Where can I
Right.
draw a line and establish where I manage myself and how I can manage other people?
It's just hard sometimes if you say let them experience what they need to experience, because sometimes, let's say there's a family member who's stubborn and doesn't want to take precautions, right? Like maybe they don't want to wear a mask, or they don't want to social distance, or there's like a stubborn senior who wants to leave the house. If you It's hard for like somebody who you kind of become codependent, because if they won't wear their mask, they could die.
No, that's
Right?
true too. Yeah. So
So where
actually,
do
what,
you draw the line of the boundary, like short
yeah,
of like grabbing them and saying, no, you shouldn't go through that because you'll die?
yeah. So no,
What's your
that's
advice
actually a
for such
really good like
situations?
example. Basically, what the whole thing is about of is this task mine is it's really about growing into a self where you are comfortable knowing what is yours and what is not yours.
Right.
But you are meant to become a human being that is there for other people. So
Okay.
obviously, if a person is like gonna harm themselves by
Right.
not wearing a mask, and you're very much concerned about your senior citizen, like parents or relatives and
Right.
friends, then by all means, yes, like it is your task, right? We also have civic duties to each other, right? We have social
That's true.
responsibilities.
That's
Yeah,
true. Okay, the next one is forgive yourself.
forgive yourself. Yeah, I guess when it comes to resiliency, forgiveness is really important also to remember that there are times that we will fall back, that there will be times that we will lapse. um I'm sure some people kanya nag-break sila before the pandemic, tapos during the
Okay.
pandemic nag-relapse. That's the best example I can think of, because sometimes people like to beat themselves up over something that they said they would never ever do
Right.
again. But from time to time, what takes a resilient personality is also learning how to forgive ourselves. Um, and I guess when things get tough, part of forgiveness is also learning how to go back to gratitude.
Okay.
Um, Realizing that, yeah, right now it's pretty shitty. But
Yeah.
when I look around me, there are some things that I can be grateful for. And
Right.
in understanding what I'm grateful for, I can also learn how to forgive myself. There is
Right.
the Hawaiian ritual, Ho'oponopono. Have you heard of that? So
No.
Ho'oponopono is just four basic lines. It's thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And I
Oh,
like to use this on myself. I live by myself, so sometimes a lot of the self-talk can also come into play. And for these four simple lines can be very helpful to myself. I can say thank you, self. I love you, self. I'm sorry for going down that spiral today and getting lost, and please forgive me. Yeah.
what are the things that most of us are very hard on ourselves about? Like for me, in the early stages of the pandemic, it was not being productive when I had all this time. So I
Mm,
think it stemmed from probably seeing what others were doing and then comparing uh, myself with what others were doing and thinking, well, how come they're so productive and they achieve this and that and this and that? And I'm just like a lump of clay on the couch, unable to move.
yeah.
What are the other things that Pinoys are very hard on themselves about and can't seem to forgive themselves for?
I think in a nutshell, the word here is guilt. There's a
Oh,
lot of guilt around things. I mean, like, let's say that I'm on the couch, everyone else is productive. Why is it like this? There's a bit of guilt there too of
right,
why is it like this? Or
right.
why am I like this? For others, it can be the feelings of guilt towards family. If the job isn't going well, or for those maybe that have lost income, that's also difficult, right? I would think that there would be some sort of, how do I say this? Unpleasant feelings. I don't really want to name it, but like unpleasant feelings around situations. And I guess the tendency to, and I think it's normal, the tendency that when bad events happen, we blame ourselves.
Right. But if you do lose your job and your family's dependent on you, after
Yes.
you forgive yourself, then what? I guess you
Well,
gotta get up and be proactive, right?
exactly. Well, that's exactly why we're talking about resilience, because the fact that resilience is about bouncing back when we've
Yes.
hit rock bottom. When you hit that bottom, you need to learn how to forgive yourself when you're in that space and realizing that, okay, it I messed up. It didn't work out. Thank you. I
Right.
love you. I'm sorry, self. I'm really sorry. And please forgive me, because I think sometimes we think that we have, how do I say this? That we've failed other people. But really, when we ask them, they're like, no, you didn't. You didn't at all. And we realize that, it was me. I failed myself. And that's why I was hard
Oh,
on myself.
right.
It's that voice in the head that is eating us up, that is making us think that way, that we kind of need to combat and say, okay, self, yeah, I was hard on you, and I'm sorry. I forgive you.
How
And
then, after you forgive yourself, do you pull yourself out of the depths of despair and then actually bounce back? Like some people get stuck, right? Or where do you find the strength to get out of that hole and start being proactive?
yeah. So, like I said, part of forgiveness is also, when it gets tough, return to gratitude. It's a really basic baby step, because we know that it doesn't take, not everyone bounces back as fast. So a baby
Right.
step is take a look around you of what's there. We know that gratitude is one very powerful positive emotion, and positive emotions help regulate what we call the vagal tone. Okay, and the ventral vagal state, which I learned yesterday, is what is actually associated to resiliency. So again, gratitude is a positive emotion. The positive emotion helps increase the ventral vagal, and the ventral vagal is associated with resiliency. So when we are so consumed by a problem, when we tend to spiral down, we need to challenge ourselves to look at the situation by seeking what we're grateful for, or kind of looking at other things that we're grateful for. So for example, um, a few weeks ago I was having problems with a particular client. We just weren't getting along,
Oh,
and I
wow.
was like, I was just really ready to, like, punch something.
Wow.
And I was ready to cry because I felt bullied there. And
Wow.
I
Oh
had
my
to I had to stop myself and say, okay, you know what? I have other clients that I'm grateful for. I'm going to focus on the positive relationships that I've formed. I'm going to say thank you for the experiences that, I have gotten so far. And that kind of took me out of the pit, one baby step at a time, just being thankful for the other things in my life that had shown me a good experience.
Besides gratitude, what are other positive emotions that we can tap into, that we can
Other
add to our
positive,
baby steps?
yeah, well, other positive emotions would be, well, there's happiness, there's pleasure, anything that acts that you find pleasure in. What else? Well, productivity, it's not an emotion, but I don't know why, but I couldn't find the word at the tip of my tongue, but productivity would be one. And I guess after going through the positive emotions that we experience, it also really helps to ground yourself in goals, in what you can do next.
Okay. So, to summarize the baby steps, you can start developing positive emotions, starting with gratitude. See what you're thankful for. Indulge in pleasure. So, yes, eat the whole ice cream pint.
Yeah.
Find things that make you happy, and then focus on productivity by setting goals. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Right.
Thanks for summarizing that for me.
Yes, and thank you for breaking it down into baby steps, because sometimes if you don't break down the elephant, it seems like such a big meal to digest.
Yeah,
So
correct.
the fourth one is be still, be present, be mindful.
Yeah. I
Hard
would
to
just
do.
say, yeah, I think that's the thing. Like when it comes to mindfulness, it's also such a big word to take in. Like, say, with
Right,
the seafarers, for example, these guys aren't even, I would say, like, you and I, for example, we find ways to kind of practice these things, and
right,
they're probably already in our routine somehow. And I think
right,
for our listeners also, there are those who kind of have that already in place.
right,
But for those who really don't, and they don't know where to begin, mindfulness can be a little bit like, like, what
right.
is that? It's intimidating. So,
Maybe first of all, let's define it. What is mindfulness?
mindfulness is the practice of being present to something on purpose.
Okay,
That's the long and short of it. So
okay,
you're doing things purposefully. So if
okay.
I'm on a call with you, I am purposefully paying attention to you. I'm not on my cell phone,
Right,
you know? So that's being mindful. When you're speaking to me, I'm paying attention on purpose to everything that you're saying, so that I can also understand what's going on. That makes sense?
yes, yes. I'm often, because maybe I'm thinking of so many things all the time, I'm often absent minded. So I lose things, I forget things, uh, I neglect things. And would you say that this is a result of not being mindful?
It's, I don't know if it's a result of not being
Or,
mindful. I think that it's normal for the mind to go in many places. That's one.
right,
So our
right,
mind tends to work that way naturally. Now, mindfulness is a skill that, well, we can grow. Now, for
right.
us to tend to forget things, I think that's normal. I think it's not an effect naman of like not being able to, I didn't get to meditate today, therefore I'm like forgetful, right?
Or like I have to tell myself, I am putting the pen in the drawer
Yeah.
mindfully, so I will remember.
Maybe that's just more like a memory exercise.
It's just bad memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or what are some examples of mindfulness in practice? So when you say be present, be mindful, what are like the
Yeah.
most common scenarios or maybe regular situations where it will help us to be more mindful,
Right.
besides focusing on who you're talking to and not texting?
Yeah. So actually, mental health, for example, is three things. It's bio, psychosocial. So I would focus on those three, for example. So in order to achieve um, mindfulness, or to be able to grow in these aspects, we would need to be present to them. So let's say for our biology, one way that you can become present is by moving your body. So what happens in the body happens in the mind and vice versa. So if you don't like, or if you don't feel like sitting at your desk all day, then change your posture. So that's what I was saying earlier, that when there's something unpleasant happening, that we can shift our attention and we can be engrossed in another activity that we can enjoy. Does that
Okay.
make sense? So it doesn't have to be, learning how to listen to somebody. Mindfulness is also just kind of being in the exercise. So moving your body. If you want to dance, dance. Be in that dance. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sit and listen to your breath all day.
Right.
Not really. Yeah. And then, of course, with the social aspect of our well-being and our resiliency is, we can learn to be mindful when we socialize with people, becoming present to the fact that, hey, I need to talk to somebody right now.
Right.
So it's just noticing and being aware of what's coming up and what you need in that moment, and then addressing that and being present to that particular state.
Right. I'm just curious, how do you teach mindfulness to the seafarers? Like, how are they able to apply it in their daily lives?
Some ways that we teach mindfulness through like particular courses. So there is like mindful eating. We do exercises with them.
Wow.
Yeah. We also do loving kindness meditations that are already on the ship. So these are actually part of the program. One very, I guess, tangible way of practicing mindfulness for them was we started asking them to monitor their weight and their blood pressure. These are very
Oh,
concrete, meaning on a weekly basis, they come together, they weigh in, and they take their BP.
okay.
And this practice helps enhance self awareness. So
Right.
that goes back to number one. It's all about self
Yes.
awareness, self management. And
Right.
you only kind of really get there after you've done it a couple of times.
Right.
So if you want to maybe observe how you are, you can do something like that. Maybe it's not weighing yourself every day, but
Right. Right.
um, a check in with yourself on a regular
Right.
basis is one baby step to becoming mindful, becoming present
Right.
to where
And
you are.
especially during the pandemic, well, I myself am prone to stress eating, ergo mindless eating. It's a way of like numbing your stress, right? Like junk food or all the bad carbs that are coming our way, and it makes sense. I'm sure a lot of health problems will arise in the aftermath of the pandemic because of all the mindless eating. And maybe this is helpful too for other bad habits that we might have that could be detrimental to our health.
Yeah, I mean, if it helps you keep a chart, monitor yourself. If there is a bad habit that you want to start um, changing or shifting, then let's say stop smoking.
Okay.
Why don't you like tally that, right?
Right, right,
Literally keep track of yourself. That's one
right,
way of kind of being mindful of the day. Did I get through the day? How am I doing now? What does that make me feel when I have a craving? And what do I do about it to shift it?
right,
But every single moment of that day and being able to catch yourself in that moment is already being mindful and conscious. I
right,
like how Eckhart Tolle puts it. I think it's in one of his books. He says that, consciousness isn't really about the whole it's not the like that. Consciousness is catching yourself when it's happening. So when these things are going on, it's the oop, there it is. And
right,
that's already a baby step towards mindfulness. Are you
right,
aware of it when it's happening?
right. How do you balance being mindful and catching your, bad habits with forgiving yourself? So like,
Ooh.
I deserve a treat. I deserve this ice cream. But then in the long run, my health will suffer, right? So where do you
Oh,
put yourself? How do you balance it all?
that's a really good question. In my
Because
head right now, mhm,
we cope in so many ways, good and bad. Go
I
on. You
guess no, because I started thinking like that's a good example because what if the giving in is also, really detrimental, let's say to
right,
life, right?
right,
Then where is the balance there?
right.
But we
I'm
know
sure a
that we
lot of
tend,
people are drinking. Sorry, go ahead.
no, but I mean, from time to time, we really do need to know that we can have things that we enjoy. But
Right.
if it is bad for your health, let's say your doctor has already told you that you shouldn't be having this, then
That's
please
true.
look for an alternative. Like be proactive about your health and seek the same taste, but from a healthier alternative, maybe, you know?
Find other dopamine
Exactly. Because
sources,
we can't naman stop that, we will want that sort of food.
or maybe replace the bad food with
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about food,
plants.
so yeah.
But I guess, like you said, if you monitor it, I mean, you can't change what you don't measure, right? And so, if you have a concrete way or metrics by which you can monitor your habits to see if it's excessive or not, maybe that's a way to gauge. Like, I
Yes.
mean,
In
wait,
fact,
I mean, if
yeah.
you
No,
do
in
gain
fact,
so much,
self-monitoring behaviors can actually help increase self-awareness. So if
yes,
it's as basic as that, tallying every single day, see where it
right,
takes you.
right. But then forgive yourself.
But also forgive yourself.
And
Yeah.
number five is use my soul briefcase. Maybe you'd like to introduce the soul briefcase to our viewers
Yes.
while
So
I go ahead and talk about it while I fiddle with the controls and try to.
okay, sure. Yeah. So the next or the last tip on resiliency is using My Soul Briefcase. So My Soul Briefcase is a product that I designed. I'm working now with my business partner, and this was actually made as a response to the very high demand for mental health professionals to help so many people process what they're going through. And the deck is meant to drive insight and reflection through 50 cards, unique cards, which allows you to tackle brief challenges or cases. So that's why it's called My Soul Briefcase, because it's really meant for you to tackle the cases that are ano to, more parang shorter and more tangible ba. Okay. Yeah, so basically, when we're faced with some sort of challenge, there are like more than 100 ways that you can tackle this through My Soul Briefcase. There are 50 cards in the deck, and what it does is it's actually a new way to have a conversation with the self um, through the cards. So here you can see the cards have four different colors. So earlier Mirza flashed three of them. There was the green, the yellow, and the red. Okay. And each actually means something different. So the green cards are meant to help you kind of explore, to start understanding what it is that you're faced with. The yellow ones help you dig deeper into the situation, and the red kind of helps you come to a resolution. Okay. Yeah. So I think Mirza, you have like other pictures
Yes, please
there.
continue to speak while
Yeah.
I
While she figures it out.
fumble
Okay.
with. Hang on.
All right. So actually, some of the questions I already posed in our discussion today, like on the self-reflection and the self-management, these are examples of items that My Soul Briefcase can actually help you flesh out further. Okay,
So
so
for
for those,
example,
so for example, this is a red card. A red card is usually, again, for the ending of the reflection. And we see here, I find myself more and more drawn to fulfill. This is after the fact of what you've already processed. Okay, so if you go to the green card, Mirza, maybe we can try that. Actually, maybe you can complete the sentence on the green card.
oh, hang on. What was
It's
it? The
called
red
sample
one?
green. Sample
Sorry.
green.
Wait, hang on. Let me try to bring out the yellow card and I will apply it to myself. Hang on, hang on. There. Some of my happiest memories are, ooh. Some of my happiest memories are being with friends and not caring about life because they're so funny that they make me forget. Or today, a happy memory that I want to focus on is breaking my fast with a croissant. Eating pa rin, di ba? Stress
I know,
eating.
I was gonna say, I see where this is all going now.
Parang kailangan ng counseling yung stress eating, di ba? In that memory, I was savoring the flaky, carby goodness and the buttery absorption of something I should not be eating. I was surrounded by nobody, and so I ate like no one was watching. I don't like that card. Okay, let's go to another card.
All right. Yeah, so but how did you feel going through the items?
Uh, I felt guilt, actually.
Of enjoying it.
Well, there was gratitude for being able to, I guess, uh, savor it. Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
kind
yeah,
of
so
lost
yellow
here.
cards typically come after, like, another set of cards, which are the green ones. And the green ones kind of help you organize what the challenge is.
Right.
So yeah, so this is usually like you're starting with, okay, you're facing a challenge right now, you pull out a green card and go ahead.
Right. So if my feelings had a name, I would call it, wow, that's hard. What? I don't know. What's your answer to this one?
Well, okay, if I fabricate a challenge right now, for example, if my feelings had a name towards this challenge, I would call it annoyance.
Oh, okay. With a
Or I would
client.
call it, yeah, some people, I mean, it doesn't have to be like that because mine is more like I identify it, but other people would name it, let's say, piglet. Tatawagan
Okay.
ko piglet. Yun na lang yung feeling niya. Pwede rin. Or I'm gonna call it, a dark cloud hanging over me.
Okay.
It can be that.
So it has affected me by making me so annoyed I wanted to punch someone. In your case. And it affects people around me by because I'm annoyed by everything and so I'm grumpy. Tama ba?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so these are, I mean, obviously, like, we're kind of just going with the flow and making up like a scenario as we go. But the green card is really kind of meant to help us pause in the what is the challenge that I'm facing, and let
Right.
me face it right now. Let me kind of identify. So this is a go signal. The yellow, as you saw, it kind of tackled more on the, well, let's shift the attention into
Oh,
something else and kind of help you build on your resources. So
right.
in those, like, while you were thinking about the happy thought of the croissant and breaking that fast and everything, your mood was so different from how we tackled the green one, right?
Right.
And then when we come to the last one, the red card, it's supposed to help us kind of find resolution in the situation. Okay. So there really is, I mean, the cards are not meant to be used just in one way. I think that there's a lot of flexibility here and creativity. And for those of us that dabble in, the tarot, oracle sorts of cards, this is also great to kind of mix and match.
Right.
Yeah.
So for the red one, I find myself more and more drawn to fulfill what? Fantasy goals, like having a talk show that I made up, that I just made up.
Yeah. Well,
Is
yeah,
it
right. So if I
set
was
an
starting with like the green card, which was like I'm feeling so annoyed right now and I'm gonna call my problem Piglet. Um,
okay.
by the time I get to the red, I would feel myself more and more drawn to fulfill like, just you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and like fulfill what's annoying me. Something like that.
Oh, okay. So do you take a feeling that you have through the red, the yellow, and the green, or
Yeah, so ideally it's like you kind of go through, you help the cards help you process one
okay,
situation at a time.
okay,
These cards can also be used with friends. Um,
okay,
in fact, like My Soul Briefcase has a manual that comes with it. So it also tells you like you can use it on your own. It tells you how you can begin, how you can process it. And if you're going to use it with friends, then go by color and kind of have that conversation with each other.
So in essence, my soul briefcase helps you what dissect your feelings and process them in how many ways? How many cards are there?
There are 50 cards. There are
In
four
50
different.
permutations.
Yeah, and then the permutation of that actually was like 5 million. But I
Oh
think,
wow!
yeah, of the different ways that you could really
Right.
put together the cards. But I think realistically, more than 100 ways for you to approach a problem and to kind of reflect on it. So
Right.
it is meant to drive insight, and
Okay.
it is meant for the brief cases or brief challenges that we're faced with, so that we can kind of come back to our soul or soul intention. So soul like yung alma, or the soul, SOLE, the very intention that we began with.
Wow, so profound yet so concrete as you have broken them down into many, many, many baby steps. How did you, are these insights based on what you have found out in your practice? Tell us how you formulated all the items in the cards.
So yes, the items in the cards are inspired by some techniques in psychotherapy. Particularly, there is choice theory reality therapy, wherein we explore again what we call the total behavior. Some of the cards help us identify this, how we're feeling, how our body is reacting, what are we thinking.
Mhm.
So it kind of helps us go through that process in the yellow cards. There are also cards here that are inspired by the likes of solution focus based brief therapy. There's also mindfulness based prompts. These aren't exactly, things that, the book says it has to be done this way, but I guess through time, when you practice it enough and you ask the right questions, no, um, this is kind of what brought me to the sentence stamps. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And how long did it take you to create this product?
Well, it had been, I had been dabbling in the idea for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. I had always wanted to put together some sort of um, tangible product that people could use in the home. At first, I was thinking, oh, maybe it'll be good for like families to manage conflict and all of that, but parang it was too much. So very recently, my business partner April, gave me a call. She said, I really want to do something in, the mental health area. What have you got? I said, well, she works with Collab Box. She curates boxes. And I thought, well, you have boxes. I have this like idea in mind. Why don't we kind of create the cards? And it took us 5 weeks to put everything together.
Great. And where can people find My Soul Briefcase?
Well, they can follow us on Instagram. It's just My Soul Briefcase, one word. And we are currently having a pre-order sale at just $888 for a deck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And this closes on August 22nd before we launch formally on the 24th.
Oh, so that's an introductory offer.
Yes.
Right. You actually held a resilience workshop, which is what I based this whole episode on. What were some of the results of that workshop? Concrete results that people probably gave you feedback about when they applied what they learned.
Right. So the resiliency series was actually 4 weeks long. The intention there was to be able to give people the skills to become resilient. So we did some mindfulness exercises, we did some homework. So it was really meant for them to kind of, one, check in with themselves and understand how they were feeling currently about like the pandemic and the situation. Another thing was they needed to have concrete skills that they could practice in and out of session, that I did with a co-therapist as well. And I guess in the end, we were able to also compare how we were coming in to the series, meaning in the beginning, it felt like, darkness, a lot of questions. But on the last session, our participants were sharing that they really found that they could now kind of control what was going on. They realized that the one thing that they could control was themselves. And it really comes back to self-awareness, self-management, being able to have the tools and the skill sets to be able to go through these situations.
Right. So briefly to recapitulate, the 5 tools that Gisa has outlined for us in strengthening your resilience is first, self-management, which helps you do other management, set your boundaries, and always ask the question, is this task mine? I'm reminded of the Polish saying, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that.
I have ish.
3, forgive yourself. 4, be still, be present, be mindful, which necessitates taking baby steps and tapping into positive emotions, starting with gratitude and finding pleasure, happiness, productivity, and setting goals. And 5, use My Soul Briefcase. Or if they don't, what's a good way to approximate number 5? Follow Gisa. Follow My Soul
Yes,
Briefcase.
you can follow My Soul Briefcase on Instagram. Otherwise, if it helps you, journal.
Oh,
Journal. Okay. It will go back to number 1, self-awareness. The sentence stems that I shared in number 1, those can help you. How do I feel right now? How did I feel when I heard it? What does it make me want to do? These are things that we kind of need to pause. And it goes back to being mindful.
Right. What does journaling actually do? Like if you break it
Journaling,
down.
yeah, well, journaling basically, when there's a lot of things going on in our mind, it's just too much content. We need to be able to make it concrete.
Oh.
So if you need to type it, you need to be able to connect the mind and the heart and the hand. So by being able to, have the kinesthetic to address the feeling and the thought. It puts all three elements together, the bio, psycho, and then like the emotional area of a person. So having things on paper, writing things down concretely can also help you process things. Even if
Right.
it's just word vomit, let it all out.
Right.
Put it
Right.
all
Right.
on paper and then take a second look, maybe take a third person point of view and like encircle words that you find are, popping out. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. So I guess because our mind is such a chaotic
Yeah.
space of thoughts, maybe emptying it from time to
Emptying
time.
it on paper, exactly. So
Right.
my soul briefcase is really meant to be that. It's supposed to be something that you carry with you that you can always
Right.
refer to. Now, if you don't have the cards, have a notebook. Write things down
Right.
on a piece of paper. Have something that you can hold.
Right.
It's taking the problem from the mind and making it tangible in front of you. So some skills that we also use in therapy are, we use a lot of imagery. So we'll ask you, okay, if it could look like something, what would it look like? And some people are like, well, it's a punching bag. Okay, so why don't you start punching it? And by making it concrete like that, you are able to make the problem a little bit smaller and you're able
Right.
to kind of handle it better instead
Right.
of it being so like, oh, it's all over the place, it's too big, I can't. You
Right.
can. And there are ways that you can by putting it on
Right.
paper, by making it something and tackling it from there.
Right. And it also probably gives you a sense of control when it's, I don't know, processed in a neat, manageable manner.
Yeah, yeah. That's why they say, some people like they like punch pillows and stuff because it's
Oh,
it's it's there. There's something that they can translate it to. But of course, try not to harm yourself.
right.
Um,
So if you could sum up being resilient in a final parting thought for the viewers, what would you say about how to be more resilient?
whew, how to be
Like
more resilient.
essentially, it is all the things we talked about,
Yeah.
plus. Right.
Essentially, I would think resilience is having the courage to try again. It's really, I think resilience is courage in a nutshell. It's the courage to face yourself. It's the courage to face other people. It's the courage to do something you haven't done before. For those who have lost their jobs and who've had to like really pivot in this
Right.
point in time, that is courage and that is
Right.
resilience.
Right.
Um, and also being able to face their demons at this time, that is courage. So I think that that's really what resiliency is about. It's having the heart and knowing where we want to put our hearts is what's important.
Right. Wow. Thank you so much, Gisa. Thank you for arming us with the tools and skills we need to survive, persist, and hopefully thrive in these times and hopefully beyond. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mirza, and you're most welcome. I hope
Where
that
can we
was really
follow
helpful
you?
today. Well, you can follow me again on My Soul Briefcase on Instagram or Healing Minds PH on Instagram and on Facebook.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. This has been Ask Miss Mears, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.